Okay, let's get started. Today we're going to be discussing the challenge season that's currently up right now, which is the Conversation with a Dragon challenge. And let's read the challenge description that I wrote for you guys. A weathered traveler and a vain but curious dragon converse at odds, battling with riddles, challenging each other's minds and patience. The weathered traveler is in search of information and passage through the dragon's dominion, but the dragon, having been alone for years, hungry and bored, will not show this traveler easy passage. But in truth, who dares ever hope for an easy time with a dragon? I ask you. Okay, so that is the gist of it. I gave you guys free reign. I assigned this before my 2-week break, so you guys have had a lot of time. Probably a month and some weeks, or a full month. So what I wanted to talk about today, the biggest lesson about today's session is staging and staging right. And a lot of you have no idea how to stage. Absolutely no clue how to stage. So there's a lot of scenes here. I'm trying to find one that is actually from the studio. But I think I'm just going to be looking at illegal videos this entire time. And I don't want to put an illegal video in my my YouTube video. But I really wish that I could find some good scenes for you guys to explain what it is I'm going for and what it is I'm going to be looking at. So the criteria is basic. I'm going to be looking for students who use, or rating on students who use the use of multiple grounds. Foreground, middle ground, and background. Are you occupying all of them? Are you using a low or high camera? Is the horizon at an angle? Is it a basic flat horizon smack dab in the middle of the canvas, all boring and doing nothing for the scene? Is it a Dutch angle? Is it a fisheye lens angle? Is the horizon even visible? Is it a claustrophobic scene? Is it a wide shot? Is it a close-up? And I'm going to be looking for scale. Scale is a big one. Scale is big because what the issue is, you're never gonna, if you met a dragon in your life, you're never gonna be able to size up to it. It's too big. And so you have to, as the artist, illustrate that. You have to illustrate that the dragon is too big. That means that you are never at a position where you can do what I'll show you. You're never at a position where you can fit both the dragon and the object he's speaking to or the objects around him in the same scene. You can't fit everyone into the same canvas. You can't fit the dragon in the canvas. And if I see people who have been fitting them in there, I will feel like we've lost a great deal of scale. There are these things like storybook canvases where you have to fit everyone in there because that's the style of the storytelling. But right now, the biggest thing that I saw is that you're forcing the scale. You're not using scale to your advantage to deliver a sense of awe, to show the magnitude of the dragon's size, to show how it is an intimidating dragon, a dragon that is not easy to talk to, as the description has requested. So when we see things like this, I also looked up another scene for you guys, the dune worms, which is another example of how important staging is. Scenes like this are so wonderful because we are a small object looking up. The scale is massive and the worm does not fit in the screen. We see this used a lot. Some of these are fan art, so they're done wrong. See this flat and then the guy writing it. The worm feels like it's just a worm. It doesn't feel like a massive, colossal object. Either the camera is really high and the people are running away, and that angle is completely just tilted, which is exactly, I think, similar to a scene in the movie Dune as well. But it has to be colossal. It has to take up the most of the canvas. It is a massive object, and that's what makes it feel intimidating. When we have scenes like this, is probably just a minor scene, or maybe it is actually an establishing scene, I don't remember. But it's a pretty flat canvas. But as the action continues, as the action goes on, the angles become a little bit more unstable, and the horizon line gets to be a little bit more tilted. Even if it's just the dune that's causing the tilt of the horizon line, you have a flat one in the back, you still interrupted that boring horizontal line, that very geometric line. So you guys are not actually using this. A lot of you have not used scale, and some of you have had beautiful paintings in your thumbnails that you didn't use. This is one massive example. And then smog scene, I'm going to try to just use pictures instead of actually playing a video. Whoops. So you can see he doesn't fit in there. It's a very large scene. It's a very large object, and the scale is being maximized. The scale is being used. We are looking up at the dragon. The dragon is in no way in a comfortable position with us at a comfortable size, or we don't feel like we need to run away. We have to run away. It's massive, and that's what made the danger feel so wonderful. Right? Always larger than life, always massive, always taking up the screen. And that's what I expected to see out of all of these. Some stuff that I wanted to see you guys explore in your thumbnails. Right? So there's never is a point where he feels like he's small until we have the gold statue that he stands in front of. And at that moment, we really feel like he has been defeated and the gold falls on him. But then he just takes up the screen again and he becomes larger than life in the screen. So if you guys haven't seen this scene, please go watch it, catch it on YouTube, I don't know where. And try to see this scene for yourselves. The moment Smaug becomes small is the moment they get the upper hand in the battle, or the weird chess game they play under the mountain. But you guys should really take a look into how media portrays dragon, or successful media anyway, portrays dragons. They're always larger than life, and you're dealing with a great deal of scale. And so some of the stuff that you guys have actually made have none of that, and it's very unfortunate that we're seeing beautiful designs, beautiful concepts, but the staging is so weak. It's another massive weakness that we have here in the community. Staging is a big part of art. And I know you guys are frustrated with anatomy and form and trying to deal with all that goes into rendering, but staging plays a big role. So this is the one that made me look up the Dune reference, and what we have here is a beautiful control over color, over detail, wonderful lighting. You're using multiple areas of the background, middle ground, and foreground. There you go. I'm going to just leave that here. And so you're definitely using all of that except scale and the use of the camera angles. The dragon could have been a little bit larger. The canvas could have been just along a dune type situation where we have that exact scene repeated. It's all right to repeat different kinds of camera use. You can shamelessly, and write this back to me, you can shamelessly copy camera and staging. You can shamelessly do it. A lot of this happens in cinema. A lot of directors from today imitate directors from the past. Back when it was even just black and white, they copy them scene for scene. It's not wrong, because there is only so much variety you have in presenting something to convey an emotion or convey a story. And when you have a almost comical level scale between these two, you don't feel like he's intimidating. What I wanted it to feel like is intimidating. A dangerous dragon. He's bored. He's hungry. He's toying with you. You're not really going to feel like he's safe. And it's not like a Cheshire cat type situation. Yes, very similar conversationally and character design or attitude-wise or script-wise, but not at all scale-wise. Imagine a massive Cheshire cat and a small, tiny person at odds. One wants something from the other. So you don't know how to, at this point, really involve the viewer and scare the viewer. One thing you could have done, you have a line here and you have two worlds. One thing you could have done is really explore the way the snake coils around the entire scene. So you could have made him take up a lot of the scene. So again, one of the biggest requirements is that the dragon takes up the scene. All right, and so we have a break in the horizon line because the silhouette is going. We continue this use of middle ground, foreground, background, nice and steady, and then we have the dragon who is kind of maybe tilting his head so he can see properly the character here who's talking to him. The camera could have been a little bit lower on the ground. If I was a cameraman and I was filming this whole thing, I'd be just as small as this guy. I wouldn't be a dragon with a camera, his buddy nearby taking a video with his phone of his conversation with a human. So the angle is really high in this guy. Who's filming this? That's the question directors ask themselves when they try to get try to remove the feeling of a director nearby. They try to break that, they try to keep that fourth wall hidden as much as possible. And when you have a camera angle that's so high, yeah, of course it's a helicopter. A helicopter did this. What you want, the best chase scenes, in my opinion, are the not cinematic ones. The ones where the camera is right in the car, the ones where the camera is right on the horse. Those really make you feel involved. And so when we have a camera that's so high in the sky in an otherwise technology-less world that you're trying to portray, that you're trying to write for, you're breaking your own writing by making the camera so high. Keep the camera low, as if you are another person nearby, as if to make it really feel like you are the viewer himself, not just a camera person nearby, but I mean the character himself. The camera are the character's eyes. Yes, of course, sometimes we need to indicate the characters there so we can't actually be the character's eyes, but another camera nearby, nice and low on a dune, could have done so much to create that epic feeling. So art is not taught without demonstration, so I'll show you how I would have kind of organized this scene along the dune. So one quick little sketch up here. So we have one dune over here, different dunes pointing. We have like a flat horizon line. They decrease in size, so I'm trying to use scale. And then we have a horizon line in the back, and then we've got the dragon coiling. And from a very, very high perspective, the dragon's tilted its head, looking down at this character, and the character probably struggling because of the wind or the disturbance that the dragon has caused by surfacing above the sand. The horse is scared shitless. It's probably running away. He's saying, no, 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 horse, stay with me. And then he's trying not to get scared, and he's probably has a staff or something. And they're struggling to stay atop this foreground dune. And so the dragon has taken up. You've used multiple angles. You've used a low camera. And if you want even more to use a low camera, I've tilted it again. You want even more to express the feeling of colossal size or scale, make the dragon even bigger. Taking up the canvas completely. Sand everywhere and barely an eye visible looking down at the character, and they're talking. So that's how I would have organized that entire scene. But where you have it right now is very, very minimal, very weak, very stale feeling. I don't feel scared of the dragon. One of the biggest things they did in How to Train Your Dragon, even though they weren't large, they still used low cameras. When we first met the dragon, it was above the camera, always above little tiny Hiccup. And eventually when they became friends, they started leveling their heads in the camera. But watch that movie and you'll see the dragon's head is almost always above Hiccup's head. They don't want to put it in a camera angle where they feel like they're almost leveled. This feels like it's almost leveled, and you've separated this scene, this whole part of the canvas from this. You haven't interrupted it enough. That's all I have to say about this. Color control is beautiful. Cast shadows are gorgeous. I really love what you did here, but this camel is way too calm considering he's eye to eye with a predator, a massive who probably eats camels. And he probably heard about a dragon eating camels somewhere in his journeys. So yes, no intimidation. It really doesn't feel like I'm being moved at all. There is one that I really wanted to show you. One of these had an excellent set of thumbnails I wanted to show you guys. Where is that? I'm going to have to just look for it here. Where are you? Okay. So a lot of you are using really, really balanced canvases that they're really not moving us. Dragon challenge. There we go. All right, take a look at what this person had. I don't know which one they ended up choosing. We'll see in a second. But look at this thumbnail. Look at how high that camera is. Even though it's higher than the dragon, it's still an excellent use of camera. An excellent use of height in the camera. Another one of these, I believe you also did the same thing with the camera. And look at that. Look at that dragon climbing down the tower. I'm so fucking scared right now. I really am. If I saw this in like a movie and the dragon was climbing really, really fast, I'd get very, very scared. Think back to all the scenes where the dragons are attacking in Game of Thrones. You'll see that always really, really intimidating from a high point crawling towards the viewer, always freaking the crap out of the viewer. It's just when you skip scenes like this, you're always going back to that basic flat horizon storyteller mode that looks very, very funny. Now, when I say funny, I mean when you have two characters that are supposed to be different sizes fit into the same scene with a flat camera. I don't know if you guys have seen Nacho Libre, but there's this point when Steven finally agrees to join him in becoming a luchador, and then he's sitting in the cart, and Nacho is also standing on his little I don't know, makeshift cart thingy, and he's just riding, and they both just stand there, and the camera's equal on all sides. That kind of scene is funny because it's too symmetrical. It's not trending anymore. There's no action. It's like they're on stage, and it's like a funny physical comedy kind of stage act. That is funny to us. When we have all of the characters perfectly aligned on stage with one, not background, middle ground, or foreground, just one ground that they're standing on. That's funny. And a lot of you are doing that right now, and it's making your dragons look really, really silly. It's not letting them feel intimidating. Intimidating is when he's on a whole different level, both cinematically and scale-wise. So we have, this one feels wonderful. He's really like colossal. He's bigger than the garden they've met in. So his wings are just massive, and he's just completely drowning the scene in his size, not fitting in the scene at all. And you have a tiny little guy whose horse is distressed, I think. Which is actually refreshing to see. So this would have been an excellent choice as well. But these two, this one and this one feels the most intimidating out of all of them because holy crap, he's going to catch up. As for what you have here, the bird, I'm not sure if the bird is what you meant the traveler to be, but what would have been cool is if you had the character using some kind of harness on the tower, and he's just like balancing on the tower. He's about to get eaten by this dragon, but the only thing keeping the dragon from eating him is, of course, his conversational skills. He's keeping the dragon at bay, just like the Bilbo would with Smaug. That would freak the crap out of me. I would just be. This could have been a tree, and these could have been vines. This could have been a tree, and he could have been on a rock, just standing there. He didn't have to be on a harness. It could have been anything, just as long as we have a dragon on this exact top tower type silhouette crawling towards the camera. Beautiful. If I were to, if any of these would have been, if I could rate these by scare factor, this is the scariest one I've seen. Very, very creative use of space. The dragon feels larger than life. You've completely gotten rid of the horizon line, so there's no fear of it being comical or small. As soon as you put the horizon line on, you are pitting up the largest object against the earth, which will always win. You are making us remember the earth's presence. So the horizon line always reminds us that no matter how big you are, the earth is bigger than you. So the horizon line shrinks all objects. Write that back to me. And when you minimize the use of the horizon line or you completely get rid of it, then you get a large object. Whoever was largest second becomes most large and becomes most scary. And I love when we get rid of the horizon line, just like this. Also, horizon line missing, just like this. And this has inherited the size. We don't really see where the earth is. This has inherited the size. Of course, it favors the dragon over the traveler. Narrative-wise, it makes the dragon feel like the object of interest. This one here would have been wonderful if the camera was just a little bit lower. I love how the light is drowning him and we can't see his face. But here, he doesn't feel like a danger. He feels like someone who he has consulted for advice. He doesn't feel like a danger. When we are trying to convey a feeling of familiarity or someone who is allied with you in a scene, in any cinematic scene, you never make them look too intimidating. If this was an ally descended to help him, just like all those Arthur scenes, Merlin scenes from Merlin. I never knew what the name of the dragon was, by the way, in Merlin. I think they just called the dragon. Even though it's not the best cinematic example, it's a very old show, but it has some great scenes where the dragon doesn't feel dangerous. But when he's attacking enemies, not Merlin, he does feel massive. He feels huge. How he consults the dragon, though, is just a little bit comical to me because the dragon fits in this scene sometimes, and there's Merlin in his little spot, and there's the dragon talking to him. If the dragon was a little bit bigger, if the consultation place wherever he was a little bit lower and the dragon was there discussing things with him, that would have been cool as well. So careful not to level objects of different scale. Write that back to me. Do not level objects of different scale on the same ground. It is the best way to make it look funny. It is the best way to minimize intimidation. If you want to minimize intimidation on purpose, that's what you're supposed to do. But even then, it's not a graceful thing to do cinematically. So we do have a nice, sometimes we have, you do one thing right, but a couple of other things are still wrong. So we have 2 levels. We have large object and we have small object on different levels. This is nice use of space, but it's too centered. This dragon could have been over here. This character could have been over here. This dragon could have been over here. This character could have been over here. And if you really want to organize your canvas, you just have to think in blocks. Place everything as if they were blocks. Forget that it's a dragon. Forget that it's a human. Just think scale-wise for just a moment. Cinematize it as if it's a story about blocks. That's the best way really to remove the stress factor of having to render, because that makes you want to jump into it as soon as possible. You don't spend enough time on composition and staging. Some other issues with this painting is it's way too black. You don't have a primary light source. You have these weird little algae water thingies that are minimal secondary or even tertiary objects, more bright than one of the more important focal points in the painting. The dragons seem to be getting some kind of universal light source. Level horizon, split canvas, almost symmetrical, and then you got this going on. Very, very boring staging wise. The scale really is the best thing you have going here. But you need more than that. Scale alone will not convey intimidation. Scale alone will not carry the intimidation factor. You need all of this. You need use of multiple grounds. So he could have been in the distance. His tail could have taken up the distance. There could have been more than one dragon or maybe baby dragons. The dragon does not take up the scene. The dragon is fit right into this scene. There is no low camera or high camera. Again, it feels like there's a helicopter with a camera on it. Telling it, seeing the like an omnipotent kind of perspective, which is not really viewer friendly. We always want first person. First person feels the most involved, the most immersive. Scale is used, which is good, and the horizontal angle, the horizon angle is perfectly symmetrical. It's perfectly flat. There's no angle on it at all. There's nothing going on other than that. So do you see there are so many points here, you guys? So many points to cinematize a scene, to improve the staging of a scene. And I've covered this before in all of the Titan's Graveyard Challenge. I covered these as well. So you guys really need to just buckle down and start testing these with some thumbnails. Don't take the thumbnails or graduate them into some final draft. Just for the sake of perfecting your vocabulary, familiarity with these uses, and there's so many others as well, used specifically for cinema or for connecting scenes. So if you want to get into comic books, reading about cinema is probably the best thing you can do, because it teaches you how to connect scenes and how to connect angles together through different conversations or script or something like that. But we're pretty much dealing with just flat images, so this is pretty much, or single scenes. So this is all we have to concern ourselves with. Another set of thumbnails. This one is great because the camera feels low, but it could have been just a little bit lower. The tower could have been just a little bit, or the house could have been just a little bit more at an angle, and then you get your dragon kind of just coiled everywhere, sneaking down towards the character, and the character's climbing. That would have looked a little bit nicer. We're taking up the scene. We have a flat, we have a not flat horizon line tilted away. The base or the foundation of the house becomes the horizon line. And then we have a tiny little person having a conversation with him, and a couple of little negative space interrupters right here. So it's again, what's the dragon's business doing following sidewalks? It has no business following human sidewalks. Make it break its way through. Make it go through one house and go through another house, and maybe leave its head a little bit low like a snake ready to pounce. There's so much you can do, and this character looks very strong, very unafraid. So him just standing there gives him merit in the painting. We're scared shitless and compare ourselves to him. He's very courageous, so we're curious about what he's saying to the dragon. What's happening? That's how you pull a character in, a viewer into the painting, by creating this contrast. And so we're taking up the space, and we've confused the levels. We've made a massive scale. For the dragon, we haven't shared different levels. We've thrown stuff back into the foreground and then to the background, brought stuff into the foreground. You could make him just a little bit smaller, a little bit shorter of a guy, but with the same courageous gesture. That could have been also a good improvement. So it's just a lot of these instances here where we have no use of space, flat canvas, flat horizon line, barely, not enough use. You just have foreground and background. The dragon is a gravestone that they're talking to. This character is facing away from the camera, but he has the largest size of any object in the painting. Big mistake. If you see this in a painting and you think the painting's good, the painting has still made that mistake. Never allow foreground objects that are not the focal point to be larger than the focal point. He could have been this small, holding the staff, and this tombstone could have been a little bit more of a towering tombstone. Didn't even need to be that big. It could have been just a little bit smaller, and the character is in some kind of 3-point perspective. Also, you could have given hints that the dragon might come to life if he has a little bit more discoloration where he's turned into stone. If it's just a magical dragon that you speak with telepathically, you could have shown us some kind of magical hint. You're using candles here, but you have a massive light source situation, a primary light source that has pretty much just made these candles moot. They're bringing nothing to the atmosphere. So you could have made them burned out. They weren't affecting anything. If you're responding in any way to these as secondary, it would be wrong. So that's what I mean. You guys are just using none of these are being used, not even scale. Probably just use of foreground and middle ground, and that's it. Nothing in the background. Again, another big problem area is staging for you guys. Let's see the others. I like this one because the dragon is filling up the scene. Do you see how nice it is when it's that intimidating? And the character could be a little bit smaller. So scale-wise, it could have made the character just a bit smaller and the dragon just a bit larger. His head kind of feels like it's forced invisibility. Make his horn kind of throw off into it's just a horn. Just make him look like he's a little bit bigger than he should be. I love how he's just like walking around like just, trying to fit into his surrounding landscape because he's so massive, and this character is standing there all courageous. I really like that narrative. You can make his tail kind of throw off into the background. You want to use some of the background in there. You want to use some of that. That seems like empty space. It seems like you're framing something and there's nothing there. Fill it up with something so that we don't feel like it's important, and we go right back to this character. Make his head just a little bit closer, dangerously close to the character. Another scene that we've seen recently, I don't know if you guys have caught that Game of Thrones episode. I guess spoiler alert. Honestly, if you guys watch movies just for the impact and the shock value, you really shouldn't be watching anything at all. All those people who complain about spoilers, I do not understand them. But there's this scene where a character is confronted by a dragon just recently, modern day cinema, and the dragon takes up the entire space of the canvas. There is no point where the director said, "Hey, this dragon's too big. Let me just take a helicopter and zoom all the way out so that this character is barely visible just so we can fit in the dragon." But that's how you guys think. Do you understand what I'm saying now? That's how you guys are thinking. That's how you guys are going about this. You guys think you have to take the helicopter 3 miles offshore so you can fit the dragon in. You don't have to fit it in. It's not supposed to fit in. It's huge. It's not supposed to fit in. And that's the point. So when we're seeing that used even recently, it's not some sort of old fundamental. It's a constant thing that we need to remember. When we have objects that are large, they're not supposed to fit in. It's used recently. So I think it's episode 6, yeah. Game of Thrones, episode 6, on the Dragonstone scene. I don't want to tell you exactly what I'm talking about in case you haven't seen it. But yeah. Watch that episode and you'll see how they interact. It's exactly the same as the dragon scene in How to Train Your Dragon when he finally becomes friends with Toothless and he touches his face. Very similar. After that point, the dragons are now leveled with characters. They are no longer seen as enemies or something intimidating. At least not to the protagonists. But really, really good job with this. I'm not sure if you finished it though. Another another example of scale and using similar using similar ground levels, minimal use of the horizon line. When we're talking about something emerging from a cave, what do you think about that? I mean, it kind of makes you kind of grossed out as well, because you think about stuff emerging from a cave. Last time you saw something emerging from something. So you want to bring in that gross, icky factor too. Something just emerging from a cave. You're always scared of caves. Caves are always, don't go there. You'll find centipedes in there and stuff. And then now we have a dragon coming out. How do we make the character and how do we make the viewer involved in that emergence? Well, I want to make the cave larger than life, so I will make sure the camera is low. I want to make the cave large enough to have the dragon come out of it, so it's got to take up the entirety of the scene. The dragon is coming out probably through a bunch of rocks. I'm going to have to fill this cave up with a lot of geological anatomy. Alright, so the dragon is coming out. He's kind of emerging from the cast shadow. There should be a cast shadow all over here, by the way, on this dragon. There should be a cast shadow everywhere. That sun is very strong, casting really sharp cast shadows here and here. It should have been cast on the character. So we have, the dragon coming out. We have its head a little bit larger than it should be, kind of emerging from the cave. Its hands are using the rocks to climb out. And then you have the character who is like a Tom Bombadil type character. He's not really scared at all. He seems to be just standing there talking to him, kind of just relaxed with his pipe. So you really want to make us feel like, we should be scared, but they're not, and feel interested in the protagonist as the story, as what I've written for you guys has detailed. Then you would have to make him really relaxed and make him really scary, and that's what's going to make us feel afraid for the character and then wonder, what are they talking about? And again, that's how you create that involvement with the viewer. Over here you could have a little bit more rock anatomy, some trees, all of that business. Make the camera a little lower, make him tower just a little bit more, kind of like that. Make him tower just a little bit more, taking up more of the scene. If you want him to take up more of the scene, maybe have his body above, snaking out, and his head is just there. That's how you make something feel like it's top heavy by having the character cover up the top half. If you have too much covering the bottom half, it's going to be a low, heavy canvas, and you're always going to have the sky right there, reminding us the earth is bigger than everything. Hide the earth, hide the horizon line. It'll make everything feel larger than life. It's so big, the trees are so clustered, the dragon is so huge, it's hidden the horizon line, so to speak. Right, but these are wonderful. These are all just so colorful. You guys have really explored a lot of stuff. It's not a skill thing, and it's not a talent thing when it comes to using these. It's all just basic technical stuff. It's just like a tool. It's just stuff that you use. You don't have to be a genius. You don't have to be talented, and you didn't have to start drawing when you were 5 years old to get the benefit of these. But how do you use them? You don't use them the next time you try a masterpiece and you go right in. You try them by multiple attempts at a thumbnail. You explore what they give you. Maybe you favor one thing over another. I surely favor high cameras or low cameras. I hate balanced cameras. They are always boring to me. If I see it in movies, if I see it in screen, like close-ups, even close-ups, I hate it. So there were so many close-ups in the recent episodes of Game of Thrones where the camera was just level. I hated that. It seems so cheesy in 90s and kind of like love story type close-ups or soap opera type close-ups. I want close-ups that are high camera or low camera where the eyebrows are kind of hiding the face, creating that mystery in the character and their sudden realization. What are they thinking about? They do have that high camera, that moment when a certain character watches a certain other character steal something from a room. I don't know if you guys are watching this, but after one character, you know what, fuck it. Arya steals something from Littlefinger's room, and it turns out that Littlefinger has been watching her. When we discover that Littlefinger has been watching her this whole time, and before this, a sequence was set up where she was watching Littlefinger. Well, she had the high ground. So what happened? She always had the high ground watching Littlefinger, and Littlefinger was always on the low ground. But when he became master of the scene, he became master of the wits, he became, standing at the height of some stairs, looking down, creeping the way he does, and looking down at her while she thought she was alone. That's how you use camera angles to your advantage, high or low camera. You're always going to be high or low. Middle ground is zero interest factors, zero storytelling in leveled characters. Write that back to me. There's zero storytelling in leveled characters. So right here, this dragon is flying, his eyes are glowing, and you've leveled everything. Yeah, you've showed us a lot more of the sky. That's cool, because when you do have a low worm's eye, you see more of the sky. A worm sees more of the sky than a ground. A bird in the sky sees more of the ground than the sky. He's in the sky. So that's cool, you use that. But I would love to see you take up more of the space in the scene with the dragon. So maybe the dragon could be a little bit more larger than life. Seriously, if you guys are all about that whole spoiler thing, a lot of you are just like casual watchers, and you're just dirty casuals to me. And then he could be a little bit more kind of like staring down, head tilted. This is another thing I wanted to discuss that I'm going to remind myself of. Head tilt for personality. I wanted to discuss that as well. So then we have a worm's eye view rock build up. So all the rocks are pointing up into the sky. And you have this massive dragon talking down to this character who's up here with his staff. What are you losing? I ask you. Everyone, I ask you. What did you lose in just setting it up like this? Who cares about this castle? Who gives a shit? Maybe you can just hide it over here somewhere, and maybe it's not visible at all because the horizon line is gone. You're showing me a horizon line and you're showing me a dragon. One of these is important. I don't know which one. I'm the viewer and I'm confused. You know what? Next. I don't want to see this painting. I'm not going to hire this artist. But when you're using all these faculties of presentation and cinema, you are, dragging the viewer in. You're refusing to let them go. And then you have all of this to your advantage. So you have lost literally nothing of what you painted. And a lot of you, by the time you realize it, it's too late. You've already spent 6 hours painting the painting. You could have avoided all of this and made a way more immersive painting and used all these golden ratios. Also, you guys are this one is dangerously close to a tile. So I would just flatten it out just a little bit more. The cinematic horizontal scene is just because we're looking at it with two eyes by each other. Your castle equals piece of shit. No punches pulled. No, your castle is beautiful. I'm just saying, like, fuck that castle. Who cares? It's destroying the painting. Fuck that castle. If it's stopping you from, developing a nice worm's eye view and 3-point perspective landscape or perspective. Also, it's not really there, the horizon line, but you can make one side of rocks a little higher than the rest, as if to say the camera is tilted as well. And this dragon has now occupied the airspace, and he's really feeling like holy shit, this guy is in the sky. He's just taking up all the sky. Look at that. It feels like a bunch of clouds towering over you. Have you guys ever looked at tornado pictures? So tornado. The best tornado pictures, in my opinion, are the ones taken from just the ground. Have you guys ever seen those videos where the person's in the ground looking up at a tornado? See, a lot of these, just to get the full size, are people from far away, but there are some people who take videos and they're on the ground, and it just scares the bejesus out of me. It makes me want to vomit. I think if I ever see a tornado, I would just vomit, because it's just so much larger than life. My brain doesn't know how to process it. I just have this one in my mind. I don't know if I'm going to land on it anytime soon. But this person's with his little camera or camcorder, and he can't find the tornado. I don't know if you guys know the video. He can't find it. He's looking for it. And then all of a sudden, it just takes up the entirety of the camera. And then he's like, holy shit, he zooms out. And the entire time, he was right beside the tornado. So he takes the camcorder outside to try to find where it is. He can't find it because he's too zoomed in. He zooms out just a little bit, and there it is. And it's full size, barely fitting inside the camcorder, and barely fitting inside the camera. And it's all from worm's eye view. And it made me shake in my boots just looking at that video. It was a massive, massive, like a 5 tornado or something. And that's what makes it, that's the impact factor. That you are no longer a person watching someone watch a tornado. You are the person watching the tornado yourself. Okay? So it's not Twister. No, it isn't Twister. But it's just similar to that. I don't know how to find that video now. I really want to show you guys. I want to show you guys all these videos, but I'm scared of that whole copyright problem. Let's take a look at these. Good use of levels, 3 use of levels, but it's very storybook. So does anyone know what I mean when I say storybook? Can anyone try to describe what I mean? It's just you're trying to fit everyone in here. It's nice how you've hidden some parts of the dragon. But again, the camera doesn't feel like it's part of the story. It feels like it's separate from the story. We see the fourth wall. We practically sense it. It's right there, and we don't feel like there's an impact, storybook-wise. Good job drawing the dragon. Good job drawing the rocks. Good job drawing the castle. But did that save you? No. Did that help you? No. And that's what I'm trying to show you guys today, that staging always is more important. Planning the composition and the setup is always more important. I know all we do are studies, and we don't really think about staging or cinema. But when it's time to become illustrators, a lot of you are here to be illustrators, to paint for Wizards of the Coast, to paint for League, to paint for Applebot, or whatever the hell else is out there offering jobs. If you guys want to be illustrators, I'm probably outdated by the people I'm quoting right now, but if you want to be, you're going to have to start staging. You're going to have to start remembering that an illustration has a horizon line, an illustration has a landscape, it has a sky, and an illustration needs a cameraman. And you have to be the cameraman. All right? So I'm asking you now, are you guys cameramen? Who is a cameraman? Thumbnail stages to set. Remember, thumbnail stages to set the stage. Storybook, trying to fit all of the elements in one go. Yeah, because you're telling a simple story. It's like a flip book or a clip art. Storybook feels like clip art because you're fitting all the components in. The dragon doesn't feel colossal. A princess feels, the same size as the dragon. We don't feel distress for her in her tiny little castle, and we don't feel afraid of the dragon. It's very topical, quick stuff that you don't want to scare the poop out of kids, right? I know they got diapers for that kind of stuff, but you don't want to scare kids, so that's why we don't really do all that. But when we're talking about shows like Game of Thrones, they pull no punches. They really want to creep you out. They really want to freak you out. Yes, you guys are cameramen. You have to be. You guys are cinematographers. You have to be. And it's because of this that a lot of these paintings have failed. I don't want to be the one that says, oh, wow, you guys did so great. I'm so proud of you. Because I say that. I do gush on you guys a little bit. And I do praise that you guys worked so hard and pushed and rendered it from corner to corner. But because nobody else is out there really saying this stuff, I want to make sure that I've spent more time punishing you guys and making sure that you knew you made a mistake and identify the mistake so you don't forget to avoid that mistake in the future. So a lot of these have failed, unfortunately, staging-wise or cinema-wise, because it's not something that has scared me. It's not something that has moved me. It's not moving anymore. So this scene right here is very, very beautiful. It kind of reminds me of the Oogway scene from Kung Fu Panda. Oogway feels like he's just a, common everyday turtle. I know he has a lot of divinity to him before this scene, but in that movie, as soon as he ascends, Po is on the lower corner of the screen looking up. Of course we need that because he's ascending. How do you make someone feel like they're ascending unless you're on the ground watching them get higher than you? And when we're looking at this, it really reminds me of that Oogway scene. So if a low camera, even slightly lower, and if the dragon was just a little bit more outside of the canvas, so if he was just a little bit more like this, or if he started high and then descended down for the little guy right here, that would have been a little bit more cute, I guess. So we have the dragon's trail starting high, and it feels like the dragon kind of just slithered down to speak with his little buddy. Also, the use of background and middle ground and foreground is just a little bit off. Maybe you could have shown how he also got to this high point, so maybe a couple of rocks to connect us into the foreground to show how he jumped from rock to get to this place to consult the dragon. And then you could have shown us what he, I guess, something to continue the story into the distance. what the dragon's dominion is, or where the dragon's from. Maybe a couple clouds to show how high he actually climbed to get to the dragon, or maybe some fog that feels like clouds but not really. And you kind of fill the scene up like that. Also, if we were to cut the canvas in half, all the focal points are on one side of the canvas. That's a big, big no-no. This is just a big no-no. Something had to be here. Maybe he's climbing here and he's like really scared. I don't know if maybe he's crouching with a spear. I know my character in my attempt at this challenge always had a spear and was crouching. I wanted to make it look like a Neanderthal type creature, primitive jungle person has, seen the dragon, has interpreted them as like a higher technology. I was trying to go for that. So here's some of my thoughts. Let's take a look at this one. This one is probably the most successful out of all of these, apart from that thumbnail I showed you, which is the highest in the fear factor. This one probably did it all. So we have legs that are attached to one of the focal point all the way into the distance. All right, so you're really using space and ground space. So we've got this in the background, this in a separate horizon line, this in a separate horizon line, and then this hand in a separate horizon line. And then we've got this character in a horizon line. Is he in a wheelchair? No, he's walking. So it kind of feels like he's in a wheelchair. Maybe you could have made him a little darker. You did throw off your middle ground, foreground, background, by the way. Foreground is always darker than middle ground or background. You have a nice, use of the background. He's definitely not respecting a sidewalk. Dragons don't give a shit about sidewalks. So he's kind of just traveling on it at an angle. And he's taking up the entirety of the canvas. So this painting here is really, really pretty. I would have loved a lower canvas, and I would have loved to see this horizon line just completely disappear. So there is a horizon line right here. I would have loved to see a little bit more rock this way. Maybe something a little bit more tilted. Just the whole scene tilted would have been nice. Let me show you. Just like the whole scene tilted like that would have been a little bit better. That's because he's just standing so perfectly straight right along the middle line, or beside the middle line. That would have been, just a nice little way to improve this. But this scene is very, very beautifully done. A vertical scene for a landscape is not really the best, but you do have a dragon that's sitting up. One of the problems behind having, two characters fit in is you have that storybook feel. But if the dragon isn't intimidating, or he's sitting, or he's chilling, there are other ways to have him kind of incorporated into the canvas. So you have maybe a couple rocks actually hiding, or maybe he's crouching behind a couple rocks. It's like trying to get a cat to sit down long enough for you to take a picture of it. It's never going to sit down long enough like that. A dragon, I assume, would never sit down long enough. So maybe it's walking. Maybe it wouldn't fully be crouching like that. There's a knight probably ready to kill it, or a knight that it's used to, being killed by knights, or seeing its kin killed by knights, or something like that. So I would not make a dragon sit so comfortably in front, especially if the story was telling me that they're both at odds and they're conversing at odds. So this dragon could have been pacing. He could have been sitting with one eye open, like, what I mean is like he's ready to pounce, or maybe his arms are just less relaxed than his legs. His legs definitely not relaxed, but his arms, just like you would with a cat trying to get it to sit down or play with it. It'll never stay seated long enough. So it feels very static. It's a vertical canvas. Both characters are fitting inside the canvas, and we have a flat horizon line. One thing you could have done is make him larger than the tree. So maybe he is sitting down, and the trees are just all worm's eye. And the dragon is sitting down in a really, really crazy little sitting gesture, but he's definitely kind of restless, so his legs are ready to pounce at any time. So just something like that, the way a cat would. He's ready to pounce, and then you've got the knight, probably always on a rock, standing, trying to make himself a little taller, talking to this dragon, and the trees are just towering over him. A good example of a dragon surrounded by trees, of course, is that movie Pete's Dragon. If you want to take a look at it, I love the way they do that. They really make you, they're trying their best. I mean, not all scenes did this, but they tried their best to keep the camera on the ground, looking up, at least when we first meet the dragon. And then you can make that cluster of trees happen, and then the slight sunshine coming in. This is something that you could have done instead of something so stale as what we had before. The dragon was just it just added even less of a fear factor. You know, I would want to tell a story through the dragon's perspective. A dragon has no reason to trust a human, you know? So it's just similar to what I was saying. Follow the script, follow what you were given. The more you train yourself to work with inside a narrative constriction, the easier it is for you to work with people and become a freelance illustrator as well. If you have to change the story to fit your lack of skills, you should not be illustrating. You should not be freelancing. Write that back to me. Okay. No. This one is very well. I love the use of the night sky, but again, it's just like everything but beneath this point is where all the interest is, and above here there's nothing going on. What would have been cool is if this scene was in between a bunch of was just a little bit less cropped, so cropped like this, and if he was in between like an alleyway and there were, you know, like he was sneaking in between a bunch of ruins or something like that, and the alleyway is just really, really high, and he's kind of like trying not to get eaten. And the dragon's trying to fit into this massive alleyway, and he's cornered him, but he has a spell or something that is deterring the dragon. That would have been cooler, because now you have that warm against, but now you're just showing all this empty wilderness, and it's doing nothing for the narrative other than making the dragon look tiny. The Earth's, you know, perspective, this just whole thing, this comparing the size of the Earth with the dragon, showing the horizon line, has made him look tiny. So what you want to do is hide that horizon line with like an alleyway. It doesn't have to be an alleyway. It can be like rocks or like strange little, you know, like kind of like the Far West or like Nevada or something type reference you could use for that, just to show crazy rock formations that are a little bit more weird, strangely balanced on each other. To show that desert feeling. You don't have to have empty landscape to show a desert. You can go all out and just use it that way. And the dragon's trying to snake its way through all this rock to get to his prey. And that's where they have their conversation. You don't always, the camera's nice and high to show that they're both kind of stuck in between all these rocks, that at any moment any of them could fall on them. So I wouldn't worry that much about, the biggest problem basically is the presence of the horizon line. That's what's flattened the image the most and shrunk it. You can keep them both down here just to show they're restricted and constricted, and have the moon just come in and interrupt all this warm light, have some rim light from the moon come in here and interrupt all of this, and bring in a cool on the rocks over here, so you have that nice cool versus warm clash. But again, just this presence over here is really, really shrinking the dragon, shrinking the canvas, ruining the storytelling. I hope all of this is kind of just like opening up your eyes to how important it is to do the thumbnail stage. Same issue, same exact problem. Though the dragon doesn't feel dangerous, he feels like a friendly little buddy, which is why you get away with it, sort of. I'm not sure. The canvas is too long, so you're going to have to crop it one way or another. Probably crop it this way to make sure he doesn't fit in. And then you have a line here, a very detectable line right along here that has made it look like we have a Dutch angle, but the trees are all balanced. So that's not good. That we only do that when we have like an occurrence or some kind of rocky quick scene, or we're trying to show a slope. This line should not be there. It should be a little bit more flat to show how the water sits flatly. So this is no longer conversation with the dragon challenge. This is just buddy finding their dragon finally. I guess none of these are important anymore. Since it is storybook, the dragon is friendly, and we can fit everyone in. We can still make him look colossal by making him, you know, kind of cropped outside of the canvas. But where you had it before, he fit almost in the canvas entirely. But this is against all of that. Also, the water feels like it's glowing, but you've got a lightness outside. So you want to choose the time of day that best, again, if you're trying to take a picture of something that glows, if you are in a whole new world, you're in that avatar world, and you want to take a picture of the bioluminescence, are you going to take the picture in the daytime or the nighttime? Nighttime, obviously. And the same exact thing, you got to be a cameraman and think properly. You got to think right about this. and choose what you, as the components in your canvas that you've listed out, what are the most important, what you want to portray. Without thinking about all this, all your canvas, all your paintings, all your supposed thumbnails that should have stayed thumbnails before even becoming thumbnails, hatch as masterpieces, and they're hatching with all your mistakes. You need to make sure they start off as thumbnails, as little eggs, okay? You get mistakes really quickly like that. This one, yeah, this is the one that you did before. The problem with this one, I've already discussed all the composition stuff, is you don't have a separation between middle ground, foreground, background. Middle ground is mid-tone, foreground is dark tones, and background is atmospheric fade and light tones. So here you've got black back there, you've got lights over here, you've got mid-tones for the dragon, you've got some darkness over here, but it feels like it's a cinematic, and this is wrong, this should be cropped over here. Don't use that long, what is that called again, those bars. I want to see more light values behind the dragon, so I can see the silhouette of the dragon against the background. Let me see if I can kind of just sneak that in there. Just so we have a separation between all of that. Saturation should not extend all the way to the edges of the canvas. Saturation should be limited to the focal points. You have a character who is kind of drowned in some light, so her whole values, all her values should be kind of drowned in that as well. Very, very minimal shadows. If there is a lot of shadow in this whole scene, then there shouldn't be glowing talons or whatever they're called over here. He should be in some more shadow just to help along that spotlight. And the light that is on him should be this reflected light on his face. And then you've got that secondary light revealing some more. Maybe a couple torches. Maybe he burned something. I'm not sure what could have led to that. But we need some kind of secondary light sources all around here to show where he is. All this should be dark. No rotation. No use of the cube. No cast shadows. He should be a little bit darker compared to the background. Maybe the background has a couple more of those spotlights, like those holes in the ceiling of the temple that he's hiding in. So we have a couple more spotlights over there in the distance, just kind of peeking through, showing where his position is against all of that. But what you had before was way too confusing. You had no staging at all with your values. So try that. Go back to your grayscales and see if you can separate by use of values, middle ground, background, and foreground. This one has a non-existent horizon line, which is great. She really feels like a massive dragon. And the dragon is taking up nearly all the space. It's a really, really cool design. I love these little details here. So pretty. It looks more like a horse than a dragon, which is why I like calling it a dragon. But if we were to test scale or use scale, this is kind of challenging the dragon a little bit. These mountains feel a little dwarfed compared to the dragon because they're in the distance, but this one is kind of challenging its size. So I would recommend completely getting rid of that rock, putting a couple other minor rocks here nearby, just something small, continuing that same like landscape biology all around. And then, of course, a lower camera. It could be something as simple as leaving her how she is, but making this guy in like a worm's eye view. So something like that, and his kind of cape is flowing around. So he doesn't have to be, she doesn't have to be in worm's eye view. She is the friggin' sky itself. So you don't have to worry about that, but he should be in worm's eye view. In worm's eye view, all it means is that you're doing this. The legs take up more space than the head because we are looking at everything from a worm's eye view. So we have a 3-point perspective happening instead of just 2-point. So we make the character feel like we're seeing them from a low angle. We're seeing the bottom part of their cape and all of that. This area feels a little empty. It's kind of like the start of that spiral, so we really want a little bit more. It's hard to tell where the spiral is going because at no point do we have the character in a, oopsie, at like the ideal area. I mean, it's just hard to kind of match it, trying to force it, so, oopsie. Let me get that better. Alright, so this root right here means that there should be detail in this part here, maybe a little bit more feather work. This whole root is just empty. We have two blocks, massive blocks that lead us to the focal point that are just completely empty. You can allow this to be empty. This can be empty, but this bothered me because it was part of the golden ratio, or part of the sequence that we needed to complete the spiral, because everything that touches this spiral is where the detail happens. It's not perfect. It can be beside the root. It can be around here, which is why this is a great place for him. Also, we have that same old problem where we have everything happening on one half of the canvas. So her eye of sight could have been over here, and this would have still been on the root, and he could have been kind of doing his thing over here, and she could have been tilting her head or showing some kind of personality that she is in the middle of a conversation. They can't all be still-faced dragons. I'm going to take a look at, again, horizon line, characters on the same level. It feels very storybook and cute, which is why this one, you kind of get away with it because it feels cute. He doesn't feel like a dangerous dragon. But the one I like the most is this one, because he's coming in from a high angle. I would have extended his shape all the way up because he's climbing in from a high angle and coming down, and now I've made her a little bit smaller and to the side, kind of waiting for him to get down so they can have their conversation. Really Cheshire Cat style kind of thing going on here. But this one is my favorite. This one feels a little flat, feels a little boring. This one is kind of cute. You have a lot of instances where you're casting shadows really well, but then you go into your painting here and you don't have any real cast shadow trails happening. So you don't have actual moments of sharp cast shadow. You kind of just lose that when you paint. We do lose our cast shadows when we paint, and we don't always preserve what's in the thumbnail in the final draft. So it's good to always review. What we have here is really pretty, but we have all this empty space and we have these two frames. What you could have done is just connect some more tail, just a little bit more tail this way. So he really would have felt like at any moment he wanted, he could have just destroyed this little blimp or this little sky ship anytime he wants. But something is keeping him from doing that. The conversation is keeping him going, and he's not attacking this character because he just met him. So this is a great way to break the canvas, to continue the storyline, and to not have a weird little empty space and two sides and two frames. It feels like a title should be here or something. And unless you're doing a storybook, do not illustrate for a title. Do not illustrate for a author section or a title section. All right, remember that. Unless it's a book cover, don't illustrate for a title. Other than that, I think the eyes of the dragon are a little comical because they're a little bit like cartoony. So maybe a little bit better anatomy for the dragon eyes. Dragons have really scary looking eyes, and the scariest thing about Smaug was that he had very piercing eyes. And that made him a little bit more scary and less easy to speak with, less easy to love. But then you have Toothless, which is a completely different kind of dragon. And eventually his eyes, when we first meet him, he had these really, really scary eyes. Where do I find it? He had eyes just like Smaug. So Toothless, damn it, where do I find that scene? He is basically lying down, Toothless, and he gives up, and Hiccup is about to kill him, and then he doesn't, and then Toothless notices Hiccup starting to cut the rope, so he kind of pounces on him, and when he does, his eyes were just complete. Before that moment, or after, or just before that moment, I think, or the entirety of the moment, his eyes were cat eyes. They were very sharp. So, cat eyes. And then eventually his eyes became less like this and more like the big, cute, toothless eyes. So they had two versions. They literally redesigned the character to fit in different, which is a great cop-out, which is really smart too. They redesigned the character to fit in different kinds of narrative scenarios. One that is more combative or one that is more submissive. So if you have a dragon that you want us to feel like is dangerous, take away this familiarity, this cute baby eye look, and give him something that scares us. Eyes like this are not friendly eyes that you look into in the darkness of the night to find comfort in. When you see this shit staring at you and it's laying beside you in bed, you know you married the wrong Anunnaki lizard. So right here is very, very cute, very pretty, adorable eyes, very cartoony, Dudley the Dragon type eyes, and you just want to make them less approachable, less friendly, and that's by making them tiny little slits, kind of like a predator's eyes. Trust me, he can still see if his eyes are not looking directly at it. It looks cute. It's funny, but it's also cute, like a Disney type eyes for their little people. All right, so this is a little bit more scary. We filled up the space. This guy is probably scared. Maybe this is the moment when he first meets him. I love this story, by the way, meeting a dragon in the sky. Maybe he's kind of fallen to the side of the ship here. What else? I think that's about it. That's all I would really suggest for this one. This one is an amazing piece, so I really do recommend you kind of get into completing this. Maybe start the dragon's tail. So this dragon did this, 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 and then that. That way you're filling up this space too, and you don't have the dragon is taking up a lot of the space, and you don't have random framing all around the painting. Okay, that's that. And then yeah, this one, the dragon is speaking to Ip Man, and he's following the sidewalk. The dragons don't give a fuck about the sidewalk. Let's make him destroy stuff. He's saying like he's like, fear me. And this guy's like, seriously, dude, you're so tiny. So we also laugh at that. We also feel like it's a funny little scene. He kind of is like, okay, I'm not scared. He kind of feels like a minion that you fight, not really a final boss. And this is a final boss type dragon design. So you want to make him, again, take up the scene, not giving a rat's ass about human technology and destroying their sidewalks and their houses. And now he's like, okay, fearless. Okay, massive dragon. Okay, what happened? Because he should be running away. Because I would run away because I'm the viewer. Okay, so I hope this enlightened you a little bit. Don't shoot. I hope this enlightened you a little bit on how to present and how to think about filling up large characters in a small scene, or sharing a scene between a large character and a small object. Who wins? The small object can fit in the canvas just fine, but when it comes to the large object, you should not be seeing the object in its entirety. The dragon should be taking up the scene. Please take advantage of the camera height, either low or high. That will really address a lot of narrative issues that you have issues conveying. Don't trust on the design of the dragon to scare the viewer. Oh, I'm going to give him all these horns. I'm going to give him a rocket launcher attachment. I'm going to give him like a crazy machete feet. And that should be doing it. That should do it all. No, it's not. That's not what's going to make the character scary. It's the camera. It's how small we are compared to them and their machete feet. And then we have scale, the largeness of the dragon compared to the scale. The dragon's going to look big as long as you have a speck of a human trying to talk to them. And use of multiple grounds, connect them with props or shadows, casting large shadows to connect if the light is behind the object, behind the dragon, making them look huge, casting the shadow of the dragon to overshadow the shape of the character trying to talk to them. That would have been a great way to connect different levels. The dragon is on a whole other level, but his cast shadow is cast on the character, connecting him to the character line of sight wise. And then you have the horizon line. Don't show it at all, and if you have to show it, Dutch angle it so it looks scary, just like that worm we saw. And then head tilt for personality, or just involving personality somehow onto the dragon, because it is a conversation. Very easy to give personality to Ip Man over here. He's just really, he can just kick his ass. But the dragon just feels one-dimensional. So head tilt, and head tilt is used so much on Smog. I love him because just of how they did it. I'm trying to find this. I wish I could watch the video with you guys just to talk you through it scene by scene. I would do this if it was a live lecture, but I have to upload this after. but let me see if I can find it. He tilts his head somewhere over here. He tilts his head a lot like a cat. Oh, Smog, you are so beautiful. Everybody's all grumpy. Where is it? I don't know where to find it, but they really set the scene up because his eyes were always hidden and overshadowed, but then he raises his eyes up. He looks so childish when he finally sees the gold. He looks like a little baby looking at candy. I really love what they did with Smog. It's just, I think all of the budget went to him. I don't think I'll be able to find that head tilt that he does, but it's just wonderful. It's just wonderful. And when he says, I think this is the scene when he says, you know, look at me, and when he finally flies, the camera is so low when he's flying. Really high impact scene, so please watch that. Remember that the camera is a big part of being an illustrator. To be an illustrator, you have to be good at anatomy and form and all of that other stuff, but you have to be a cameraman as well, and a good photographer. So, what's everyone saying? I haven't looked at the comments at all. Can dragons be sexy? Absolutely. Smog is derpy as fuck, though. Yeah, a little bit. There are a couple scenes where he's derpy, but he scared me the first time I saw it. He scared the bejesus out of me. Istebrak landscape. Do a nice scene, now hide it behind a giant dragon. Well, the dragon should have come first in your thumbnails. If the scene came first, you guys were being way too excited and you jumped straight into the landscape without even thinking about what the dragon had to do with the whole cinema experience. Is it okay to stage the painting at a high angle? Yes, as long as the horizon line has disappeared. And the dragon will be just fine. He'll still be bigger than the human, but you will lose that touch where you have the viewer and the small character at the same level, making the dragon look big and scary. At no point in time are you going to meet a dragon in any kind of movie or show and he's going to be smaller than the camera, unless he's a baby dragon or something cute. But if he's a colossal meanie and you're meeting a big fat meanie boss, if the director or the photographer did not film it right, you would be meeting them with a low camera, is what I'm saying. A large camera is if this is the third time we met them, or the fourth time we met them, or the sixth time we met them. Well, something like that. Then you're kind of not so scared of him, and we've seen him 100 times in the show already, and he's not that scary. If you search for the scene where Toothless kills Stoic, you see the evil eyes. Oh, yeah, that's true. In How to Train Your Dragon too. Good. Alright. Unless it is a book cover, do not illustrate for title. Excellent. So that's it for today. I will try, if you guys submit some more, if you guys have edits, if you guys continue, if you guys submit more, I will look at them as best as I can next class on Tuesday. So if you want to be a part of the community, just go to istebrak.com and click on the little Google Plus icon. It'll take you here. And to submit your work, you just have to go to the challenge submissions. And for those who I critiqued today, if you want to explore a couple more, I think there are many more here that I haven't looked at. I'll try to do it on Tuesday. But if you want to edit, if you want to try some new thumbnails, I'll be more than glad to look at them. This is wonderful. This one right here, really low camera. This one is too symmetrical. Try something a little bit more, battlefields are never symmetrical. And it's always a pending battlefield when you're talking to a dragon. Over here, he just seems a little friendly. Alright, so that's it. Thank you all for watching. I'm not taking any questions at all right now because for lack of time. Damn, I feel bad. Let me see if there's like one question. How long should an artist spend on a thumbnail? Okay, good question. An artist should spend as long as it takes, really, for you to feel like you've completed or addressed all of these things. You don't have to detail. So if you're deciding the length, depending on how you've detailed, you've done the thumbnail wrong. Do not do thumbnails with details. Do not detail thumbnails. They're detailed when they graduate into draft or final draft. Thumbnails are pre-draft. They're not even draft yet. They're just like experimentation. It's just like laying blocks down. Really, really basic. So it shouldn't take you more than, the thing is everyone draws at different times. For me, they take me like about 20 minutes, and that's it. And that's as long as I take on a thumbnail, even less than that. I just want to figure out the staging if it feels right to me. If it feels right, we keep going. No, it wasn't for landscape. So it's a landscape, but there is land all around them. But it's a conversation with a dragon. It's not conversation with a landscape. So you're drawing a dragon and you're trying to stage and fit that dragon in the camera. Donkey. Those two scenes were awesome because they were true to the spirit of the book. Yeah. Smog was one of the best things in the movie. That's the only thing that I watch for now. I don't really watch the movies anymore. I just watch the Smog scenes. When his face was hidden in the gold pile, also really, really big, colossal, big mountain of gold and an eye. But yeah, keep the details out of thumbnails. It should help you figure out how much time is left on that thumbnail. But that's it. Thank you everyone for watching. Have a great day, guys. I'll catch you guys on Tuesday, the 22nd. Bye.